The depth charge plunges into the Black Atlantic waters. Its time is set to detonate at 50 feet, not the regulation 300. Commander Frederick John Walker watches from the bridge of HMS Storr as the ocean erupts in a massive geyser just seconds after release. The shock wave is so violent that his own ship shudders, her rivets groaning in protest. Every man on deck knows what this means. Their captain has just committed a court-martial offense. It's December 21, 1941. Convoy HG-76 has been under relentless attack for 7 days. 32 merchant ships carrying vital supplies from Gibraltar to Britain crawl through submarine-infested waters southwest of Ireland. In the darkness below, 10 German U-boats circle like wolves. Admiral Karl Donats himself has ordered this convoy's destruction, calling it a decisive battle. Already, 2 ships have gone down. The escorts have dropped hundreds of depth charges using standard Royal Navy doctrine. The success rate, 5%. 5 submarines escaped unscathed. 5 commanders are still hunting. Walker knows the mathematics of death. He spent 20 years studying anti-submarine warfare from a desk at the Admiralty. Not commanding ships, but analyzing why Britain keeps losing this war beneath the waves. The statistics haunt him. Between January and June 1943, Allied forces will conduct 554 depth charge attacks. Only 27. 5 will result in kills. That's a catastrophic failure rate when Britain is hemorrhaging 7 million tons of shipping annually and facing starvation. What the U-boat commanders hunting convoy HG-76 don't know is that the past over 45-year-old captain they're facing has spent 2 decades developing tactics the Royal Navy considers impossible, wasteful, and officially forbidden. Walker has studied every U-boat kill, every failed attack, every convoy loss. He's identified the fatal flaw in British doctrine. And tonight, after watching 5 submarines escape using the Admiralty's prescribed methods, he's going to violate every regulation in the book. The shallow set depth charge Walker just released shouldn't work. It detonates too close to the surface, too far from the diving submarine's crush depth. Naval experts call it throwing away ammunition. The Admiral's doctrine explicitly prohibits it. Setting charges shallower than 150 feet was test explosive force and endangers your own vessel. But Walker has calculated something the experts missed. And in 72 hours, U-boat U-574, U-567, U-131, U-434, and U-127 will be on the ocean floor. Their crews dead, and the German Navy will demand to know what new weapon the British have deployed. One captain's forbidden modification is about to change naval warfare forever. The Battle of the Atlantic is a slow-motion catastrophe and by late 1941, Britain is losing. German U-boats operate with devastating efficiency, prowling the shipping lanes in coordinated wolf packs that overwhelm convoy defenses. The numbers tell a story of impending defeat. In 1942 alone, U-boat will sink 160 Allied ships, nearly 6.3 million tons of desperately needed supplies, fuel, and weapons. At this rate of loss, Britain cannot survive past 1943. The Royal Navy's anti-submarine doctrine seems logical on paper. When acoustic sonar detects a submerged U-boat, the escort vessel races towards the contact at maximum speed, releases a pattern of depth charges set to explode at 150, 250, or 350-foot depth, and hopes one detonates within 20 feet of the submarine's pressure hull, the only distance guaranteed to cause catastrophic damage. The attacking ship then loses sonar contact because her own propeller noise and the explosions blind her senses. The U-boat commander, hearing the high-speed propellers approaching, dives deep, changes course, and slips away while the escort flails blindly, dropping charges into empty water. This tactical failure has been documented thousands of times. Yet, the Admiralty refuses to modify doctrine. Analysis shows that between 1939 and 1943, British depth charge attacks succeed only 5 to 7% of the time. Out of 574 depth charge attacks conducted by Royal Navy vessels, only 85. 5 result in U-boat kills, a ratio of 60. 5 attacks per success. Escort commanders burn through their entire supply of depth charges without scoring a single hit. U-boat crews have coined a term for the experience of being depth charged using British methods. They call it getting our back scratched. The problem isn't the weapon, it's the doctrine. Standard Mark 7 depth charges contain 290 pounds of metal explosive, powerful enough to crush a U-boat's hull if detonated within 6 m. But U-boat commanders have learned that British attacks follow a predictable pattern. They hear the fast-approaching propellers dive to 600 feet, turn 90 degrees, and wait. The depth charges explode far above and behind them. After the attack, they surface, repair any minor damage, and resume hunting. Naval experts blame the weapon. They demand larger charges, more sensitive pistols, better ASDIC. They never question the tactical approach itself. The doctrine has been refined over decades by committees of admirals who've never hunted a submarine in combat. It's printed in manuals taught at training schools and enforced rigidly. Deviation is grounds for disciplinary action. Convoys continue to burn. On November 2, 1942, convoy SC-107 loses 15 ships in 4 days. In March 1943, convoys HX-29 and SC-22 lose 22 ships in a single coordinated Wolfpack attack. The worst convoy disaster of the war. Survivors float in burning oil slicks, screaming for help that often never comes. Merchant seamen face a 25% casualty rate, higher than any combat service except submarine crews. The men escorting these convoys watch helplessly as torpedoes streak past their bows, impacting tankers and freighters they are sworn to protect. By late 1943, the crisis reaches its peak. Admiral Donuts commands 240 operational U-boat with more launching monthly from German shipyards. Allied shipyards are building replacement vessels as fast as possible, but they are not keeping pace with losses. The mathematics are brutal. If current loss rates continue, the Atlantic sea lanes will close. Britain will be isolated, starved, and defeated without Germany landing a single soldier on English soil. Every Allied naval commander knows the war will be won or lost in the Atlantic, but no one knows how to stop the U-boat. The weapons exist. The technology exists. Something else is missing. Someone willing to throw away the manual and think like a U-boat commander instead of a British naval officer. Captain Frederick John Walker is not supposed to be here. At 45 years old, with no capital ship command experience and a career marked by administrative posts, he represents everything the Royal Navy doesn't want leading combat operations. He's a desk officer who's been passed over for promotion to captain twice, the polite naval term for career dead end. When war breaks out in September 1939, Walker holds the rank of commander and fully expects to spend the war filing reports in Port South. His background reads like a textbook example of unfulfilled potential. Educated at the Royal Naval Colleges at Osborne and Dartmouth, Walker showed early brilliance, but never the social connections or commanding presence that propelled officers to flag rank. He spent the 1920s and 1930s in staff positions analyzing anti-submarine warfare theory while more charismatic officers commanded destroyers and cruisers. By 1937 at age 41, he was assigned to HMS Osprey as experimental commander, essentially a technical consultant, not a combat leader. The promotion lists passed him by. The Admiralty's message was clear. Frederick Walker would retire as a shore-based staff officer, nothing more. But Walker spent those 20 years doing something no combat commander had time for. He studied every U-boat attack, every escort failure, every survivor report. He read German tactical manuals captured from Great War submarines. He interviewed merchant seamen who'd watched torpedoes approach. Most importantly, he studied U-boat commander psychology, asking a question no one else considered. What does the submarine captain hear and think during a depth charge attack? The answer came in fragments. U-boat detected attacking escorts by sound. The high-pitched whine of propellers accelerating to attack speed. This gave them 30 to 45 seconds warning to dive deep and turn. The actual depth charges arrived predictably, exploding at preset depths the submarine had already passed. And critically, the attacking ship lost sonar contact the moment it passed over the submarine's position, leaving it deaf and blind, dropping charges by guesswork. Walker began sketching alternative tactics in notebooks. What if escorts approached slowly, maintaining sonar contact instead of charging at full speed? What if two ships worked together, one holding contact while the other attacked? What if depth charges were set shallower than doctrine allowed, exploding before the submarine could dive deep? He calculated detonation times, sound propagation speeds, diving rates. On paper, his methods dramatically increased kill probability, but they violated every principle of Royal Navy anti-submarine doctrine. In October 1941, with Britain desperate for any officer willing to command convoy escorts, Walker finally receives orders to HMS Stork, a new 100-ton Bittern-class sloop leading the 36th Escort Group. His superiors make their skepticism clear. His commanding one of the Navy's least prestigious units, escorting Gibraltar convoys far from the main Atlantic routes. It's a position for officers on the edge of retirement, not rising stars. Walker doesn't care about prestige. He's been given ships, crews, and the one thing he needed most, an ocean full of U-boat to hunt. On December 14, 1941, Convoy HG-76 departs Gibraltar with Walker in command of the escort. The 10 U-boats stalking them have no idea they're about to become test subjects for tactics. The Royal Navy officially forbids. Walker transforms HMS Store's wardroom into an operations laboratory. Charts cover every surface marked with attack angles, sound propagation calculations, and timing sequences his officers have never seen. He drills his crews relentlessly on a maneuver he calls the creeping attack. A methodical, coordinated assault that contradicts every instinct of aggressive pursuit drilled into escort commanders. The forbidden modification is elegant in its simplicity. Standard doctrine requires depth charges set to 150-foot minimum depth released while traveling at maximum speed 18 to 20 knots. Walker orders his depth charge crews to preset their weapons to 50 and 75 feet with some set to detonate at only 25 feet. His officers stare at him in disbelief. "Sir," his first lieutenant protests, "those will explode practically at the surface. The pressure hull won't crack at that depth." "I don't want to crack the pressure hull," Walker replies calmly. "I want to catch them before they can dive." He explains the mathematics. A Type 7 U-boat dives at approximately 1 foot per second. From the moment a submarine commander hears high-speed propellers, he has 35 seconds before depth charges arrive. In 35 seconds, his boat drops 35 feet, well below the first pattern of charges. "But if I approach at 4 knots, Walker continues, making minimal noise and drop charges set to 50 feet, I catch him before he completes his dive. Even if I don't destroy him, I force him up or pin him in the shallow zone where successive attacks are devastating." The second modification is even more radical. Walker proposes a two-ship technique. One escort maintains sonar contact while creeping forward at ultra-slow speed, giving precise range and bearing to a second ship that actually drops the charges. The directing ship never loses contact because it never accelerates. The attacking ship follows the directing ship's radioed instructions precisely, releasing charges in a tight pattern that saturates the submarine's probable location. Then they reverse roles for the second attack, maintaining constant pressure. "That's absurdly slow," his gunnery officer objects. "The U-boat will escape while we're creeping toward it." Walker shakes his head. The U-boat captain doesn't know we're approaching. He's listening for high-speed propellers. He hears silence and believes we've lost contact. He maintains depth, conserving battery power, calculating his next attack run. "Then my charges detonate directly above him, shallow, fast, and terrifying. He has one choice. Surface and fight, or dive deep into the killing zone." On December 17, 1941, Walker conducts the first crude test when his ASIC operators detect U-131 trailing the convoy. He orders Stork to slow to 4 knots and creep forward. The U-boat maintains position. Unaware, Walker releases a pattern of shallow set charges. The ocean erupts in geysers, far more violent than anyone expected. The shallow detonations create surface effects that are visible for miles. U-131 immediately dives deep, but Walker has anticipated this. HMS Blankney races into position, dropping a second pattern at greater depth. U-131's hull groans under the pressure. The submarine is wounded but escapes. "That is insane," his first lieutenant mutters. "The Admiralty will have you court-martialed for wasting charges." Walker smiles grimly only if it doesn't work. Word of Walker's unauthorized tactics reaches the Admiralty within 24 hours. On December 18, 1941, Walker receives a TUR radio message. "Report justification for non-standard depth charge settings. Explain deviation from approved doctrine immediately." Walker understands the politics. The Royal Navy runs on precedent and procedure. Admirals who designed current anti-submarine doctrine have careers invested in proving those methods work. A passed-over commander suggesting their tactics are fundamentally flawed threatens the entire command structure. He composes his response carefully citing sonar contact duration, U-boat diving rates and statistical analysis of failed attacks. He concludes current doctrine achieves 5% success rate. Proposed modifications calculate 230%. Request permission to continue testing. The response comes 6 hours later. Permission denied. Resume standard attack procedures immediately. Depth charges will be set per manual specifications. Acknowledge. Walker acknowledges the order. Then he ignores it. On December 19, when U-574 attempts a surface attack on the convoy, Walker implements his full tactical system. HMS Store and HMS Deptford execute a coordinated creeping attack using shallow set charges. U-574 attempts an emergency dive, but the first charges detonate at 50 feet before the submarine can escape. The explosions damage the boat's hydroplanes. Unable to dive, U-574 surfaces directly in front of HMS Store. Walker orders ramming speed. Store's bow crashes into U-54's pressure hull at 15 knots, crushing the submarine's control room. The U-boat sinks in under 2 minutes. 31 German submariners die. 14 are rescued. The Admiralty's reaction is fury mixed with confusion. Walker has just achieved what dozens of escort commanders failed to do for months. Sink a U-boat in a running convoy battle, but he did it using explicitly forbidden methods. The naval staff convenes an emergency meeting. Admiral Percy Noble, Commander-in-Chief Weston, approaches, faces a room full of skeptical officers demanding Walker be relieved of command. His violated standing orders, Captain James Rucken argues, slamming the report on the conference table. Shallow set charges endanger his own vessel. He reduced speed during an active attack, making himself a target. This is recklessness, not innovation. This is one kill. Another officer adds, we can't revise doctrine based on a single engagement. Noble studies the report in silence. Walker's after-action analysis is meticulous, documenting sound contacts, detonation times, observed U-boat behavior. The mathematics are compelling, but Noble faces a strategic dilemma. If he endorses Walker's methods and they fail catastrophically in future engagements, he'll be blamed for abandoning proven doctrine. If he disciplines Walker and the convoy losses continue, he'll be blamed for suppressing innovation. The debate grows heated. Voices rise. Officers cite manual sections, training protocols, peacetime tests that proved shallow set charges were ineffective. Depth charges must detonate near the pressure hole to inflict damage. The chief weapons officer insists surface detonations cannot. The room erupted. Noble raises his hand for silence. Walker didn't sink U-574 with surface detonations. He used shallow charges to prevent the submarine from diving, then sank it by ramming. He forced the enemy into a tactical situation where conventional weapons, our bow, could destroy it. That's not recklessness. That's understanding the enemy better than we do. The room falls silent. Noble continues. We're losing this war with doctrine. We've lost 1,500 merchant ships using approved procedures. I want results, not compliance with manuals written in 1938. Walker stays in command. His methods will be observed and evaluated. If they work, we adapt. If they fail, we learn why. This meeting is concluded, but Noble hedges his authorization. Walker receives permission to continue experimental tactics, but is explicitly forbidden from teaching his methods to other escort commanders until they are proven. The Admiralty wants plausible deniability. If Walker's creeping attacks result in friendly losses, Walker doesn't wait for approval to spread. On December 21, during a Wolfpack attack on convoy HG-76, he coordinates attacks with 3 other escorts, teaching them the creeping method by radio during combat. In 36 hours, the escorts sink 4 more U-boat, U-567, U-131, U-434, and U-127. The German Wolfpack breaks off. Their commanders radioing donuts that the British have deployed a new weapon they cannot counter. Before you go, if you're finding this story as gripping as I am, hit that subscribe button. We're bringing you the untold stories of you heroes every week, and you won't want to miss what's next. The data from convoy HG-76 is undeniable. Walker's 36th Escort Group conducted 11 depth charge attacks over 7 days. 5 resulted in confirmed U-boat kills, a success rate of 44%, 9 times the Royal Navy average. More significantly, every attack maintained sonar contact throughout the engagement, forcing U-boat into defensive postures that prevented them from attacking merchant ships. 0 merchant men were lost to submarine attack after Walker implemented his coordinated tactics. The Admiralty can no longer ignore the results. In January 1942, despite reservations, they promote Walker to full captain and authorize limited deployment of his methods. Other escort commanders begin experimenting with shallow set charges and creeping attacks. By April 1942, Walker's 36th Escort Group sinks U-252 using a textbook creeping attack in the western approaches. The kill is witnessed by observers from the Admiralty's Operational Research Division who document every detail, but validation comes with a price. Walker pushes himself mercilessly, conducting patrol after patrol without leave. His tactical innovations require constant presence, teaching crews, coordinating attacks, analyzing results. He spends 18 to 20 hours per day on HMS Store's bridge, catnapping in his chair, subsisting on coffee and adrenaline. His wife Eileen writes concerned letters that he barely has time to read. His crew worships him but worry about his health. Walker ignores their concerns. Every day he's in port is a day U-boat are killing merchant seamen. In April 1943, Walker receives command of the 2nd Support Group aboard HMS Starling, a new modified Black Swan-class sloop equipped with the latest radar and sonar. This command represents the Admiralty's full endorsement. Support groups are rapid response hunter-killer forces designed to reinforce threatened convoys. Walker is being given the Navy's most advanced anti-submarine vessels and told to hunt U-boat aggressively using any tactics he deems effective. The results are devastating to the Germans. Between January 29 and February 19, 1944, Walker's 2nd Support Group achieves what naval historians will call the greatest anti-submarine patrol of the war. Operating southwest of Ireland, they detect multiple U-boat contacts and methodically destroy them using refined creeping attacks. And a new tactic Walker calls the barrage attack, where 3 ships line abreast saturate an area with depth charges leaving no escape route. January 31, 1944, U-592 under Captain Lieutenant Karl Jaschke is detected trailing convoy SL-147. Walker implements a 12-hour creeping attack, maintaining constant sonar contact while HMS Starling, HMS Wild Goose, and HMS Kite take turns dropping shallow set charges. U-592 attempts to dive deep, then surface and run, then dive again. Nothing works. The escorts are always there. Charges exploding with terrifying precision. At 3 hours, U-592 surfaces. Her crew abandoning ship. Walker rescues 23 survivors. None have injuries from the depth charges. They are simply exhausted and terrorized by an attack that gave them no opportunity to fight or hide. February 9, 1944. In a single 9-hour engagement, Walker's group sinks 3, U-762, U-238, and U-734. The battle begins at 0200 hours when Wild Goose detects U-762 at periscope depth. Walker coordinates a synchronized barrage attack with Starling, Wild Goose, and Kite advancing in line, each dropping 8 charges at precisely 9-second intervals. The overlapping explosions create a continuous wall of shock waves. U-762's hull cracks. She surfaces at 06 on 4 hours and sinks by the stern. Walker immediately refocuses on a second contact, U-238. The creeping attack lasts 8 hours and requires 266 depth charges, but at 1,423 hours, U-238 blows her ballast tanks and surfaces. Crews scrambling onto the deck with hands raised. While recovering those survivors, ASDIC detects U-734 attempting to escape. Walker's exhausted crews reload charges and pursue. U-734 sinks at 1847 hours after a 4-hour hunt. February 11, 1944. U-424 under Oberleutnant Zergunter Poser attempts a submerged attack on the convoy. Walker's creeping attack forces the submarine deep then deeper. At 0312 hours, U-424's hull implodes at 740 feet beyond her rated crush depth. There are no survivors. The hydrophone operators on HMS Starling hear the collapse. A prolonged shriek of tearing metal followed by silence. February 19, 1944. U-264 under Captain Lieutenant Hartwig Lux survives for 15 hours. Lux is a veteran commander with 4 Atlantic patrols behind him. He employs every evasion technique, ultra-deep dives, directional changes, releasing oil and debris to simulate destruction. Walker counters each move methodically, maintaining sonar contact through crew discipline and patience. At 1903 hours, after burning through his battery reserve, Lux surfaces. His crew is so exhausted they cannot man the deck gun. Walker takes 41 prisoners. The 6-boat killing spree between January 29 and February 25, 1944 sends shock waves through the German submarine service. U-boat commanders report facing a new weapon or enhanced detection equipment. Several report that depth charges are exploding before we can dive and pursuing us with inhuman accuracy. Donuts orders tactical reviews. German naval intelligence investigates whether the British have developed psychic detection methods or some form of sonar that penetrates deep water. The actual answer that a single British captain has simply refused to follow doctrine doesn't occur to them. By May 1944, Walker's total confirmed kills reach 20 U-boat, more than any other Allied anti-submarine commander. His methods are now standard across Royal Navy escort groups. The creeping attack is taught at HMS Osprey and Western Approaches Command. Shallow set charges are authorized equipment. The tactical innovations of a passed over desk officer have become the doctrine that's winning the Battle of the Atlantic. The Germans lose 43 U-boat in May 1944 alone. A catastrophic loss rate that forces Donuts to temporarily withdraw submarines from the North Atlantic. Allied convoy losses plummet. In June 1944, only 5 merchant ships are sunk by U-boat across the entire Atlantic, compared to 96 in March 1943. The mathematics have reversed. The hunters have become the hunted. If this story has moved you as much as it has moved me, please hit that like button and share this video. These heroes deserve to be remembered. And stick around because the ending of Captain Walker's story is as powerful as everything that came before. Captain Frederick John Walker never sees victory in Europe. On July 7, 1944, 6 weeks after D-Day, as Allied armies pushed toward Germany and U-boats retreat from waters he helped clear, Walker suffers a cerebral thrombosis aboard HMS Starling. His rush to Royal Naval Hospital Seaford in Liverpool, but never regains consciousness. On July 9, 1944, at 11:47 p.m., he dies at age 48. The medical report lists cerebral thrombosis as cause of death, but everyone who served with him knows the truth. Frederick Walker died of exhaustion. He worked himself to death hilling submarines. The funeral on July 12, 1944 is extraordinary. Over 1,000 people crowded Liverpool Cathedral for the service. Sailors, merchant seamen, civilian dock workers, and families whose sons came home because Walker's tactics kept U-boat away from their convoys. After the cathedral service, Walker's flag-draped coffin is carried aboard HMS Hesperus and taken to Liverpool Bay at 1,400 hours with his second support group ships lined in formation. Captain Frederick John Walker is buried at sea off the mouth of the Mersey in the waters where he hunted submarines. The Admiral's official statement is measured. Captain Walker developed innovative anti-submarine tactics that proved highly effective in Atlantic operations. But the men who served under him speak more bluntly. Commander Peter Gretton, who adapted Walker's methods for his own escort group, writes, "He taught us that hunting submarines requires thinking like submarine captains, not surface sailors. He saved thousands of lives by refusing to accept that the approved way was the only way." A merchant seaman whose convoy was escorted by Walker's second support group sends a letter to Walker's widow that becomes famous. "I don't know tactics or naval strategy, Mrs. Walker. I only know that when your husband's ships were protecting us, I slept at night. When other escorts were assigned, I kept my life jacket on. Because of him, we came home." Walker's tactical innovations remain foundational to modern anti-submarine warfare. The principle of maintaining sonar contact during attack, now called continuous tracking engagement, is standard procedure for ASW operations. The two-ship creeping attack evolved into multi-helicopter coordinated attacks used by modern navies. Forward-throwing weapons like Hedgehog, developed simultaneously with Walker's tactics, proved devastatingly effective because they allowed continuous sonar contact, validating Walker's core insight that attacking escorts must never go blind. The statistics tell Walker's legacy. During World War II, out of 5,174 British depth charge attacks using conventional doctrine, only 85 resulted in U-boat kills, a 65-to-1 ratio. Walker's personal record, 20 confirmed U-boat kills in approximately 140 attacks, a 7-to-1 ratio, nearly 9 times more effective. Escort groups trained in his methods achieved similar improvements. Between May 1943 and May 1945, when Walker's tactics became standard, U-boat losses increased by 400% while Allied merchant ship losses decreased by 90%. Frederick John Walker never sought fame. He refused interviews, declined to publish memoirs, and avoided publicity. When asked why he pushed so hard, he gave a simple answer. "Every U-boat I sink is 30 merchant seamen who go home to their families." He was a man who understood that bureaucracy kills as surely as torpedoes, and that sometimes saving lives requires breaking rules. The lesson endures. Effectiveness matters more than compliance. Results matter more than procedure. And one person willing to challenge doctrine can change the course of history.